Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Prize Inside, the 1% Tribe edition on Sunday night. I hope you guys are having a great day. It's beautiful, gorgeous in the old Michigan area. Got to watch some exciting basketball. For those, I'm a pretty big fan of March Madness, college basketball. Love watching it. It's just like one of those sports that it just, you never know what's going to happen. And I feel like it's one of those last, sports that isn't ruined by a ton of money yet, but it probably is. But I pretend like it's not because it was so good. And like, we just watched a Duke UConn game and UConn somehow came out with it, even though I'm not a fan of either because my Spartans got beat by the UConn. It's still an amazing thing. So hopefully you guys are having as much fun as I am. I had my birthday gift this year was a new barbecue grill. I needed one. My last one lasted like 14 years. So I've been building that. So I got that done. So I'm pretty pumped about the barbecue season and when we can get out and do that kind of thing. And I got to root on now, I don't do it very much, but my high school robotics team. So I'm not a coach of it or anything, but a lot of my kids that came from middle school went up there and couldn't be prouder of their resilience. I kept seeing out there. They had a lot of errors that kept happening. Like what happens when you put out a robot in the situation, but they really made it to the playoffs and could do at least something, and it was pretty cool to watch. So got to do that this weekend and hang out with some great people that are hoping that as well. So for those of you who didn't know, we were March 28th. We were going to do a whole kind of retreat. But it was terrible timing. You had everybody in spring break, all kinds of stuff. So what my plan is I would like to do it again, but I'll just reschedule it. So it was an anti-inflammatory kind of boot camp. We go through all of it. If there's any type of interest out there, I know I have some interest, of course. I just didn't want to make, oh yeah, I know, go blue. I know, Hackworth's like, they look so good. I don't know who's going to stop them after that. Julie, thank you for your patience in our trying to get this retreat going. I found out I can actually do webinars, so it might actually be better. I still want to do something in person. So Rachel and I have some cool ideas. Just so stay tuned for that. Because I think just getting together will be worth it. That's part of the reason I do these podcasts is like I get to hang out with like-minded people more often. So good. And Julie says, which I agree with, Rosemary is a fantastic topic. So before we begin, remember, if you'd like to do this, I've been doing newsletters on Tuesday and a few other things. tribe1.substack.com. tribe1.substack.com is a place you can go. It's basically you get on the email list and then you can get on emails that are pretty relevant. I'm trying to get more and more content there, but not enough to blow up your mailbox, kind of thing. So you get like one a week, something like that. And that's enough. Like I have a few emails that when it hits my email box, I'm reading it. Right. And I want that to be the tribe1.substack.com for you guys. The other is always look on the Prize Inside, a chiropractor journey on Rumble. Rumble's an app like YouTube. So if you don't have that, If you want to start following on YouTube as well, we have the Prize Inside a Chiropractor Journey on YouTube. So those are the places. Subscribe. I'm getting closer. Like on Rumble, if I hit like 100 subscribers, I get something. I don't know, like a little more visuals, those kind of things. But like Julie said, this is a really good one. Why Rosemary tonight? Well, I wanted to find things in the spring. So in Michigan in the spring, it's start to grow season. Rosemary's a good one that can potentially grow pretty well. Now, it's not a great one for winterizing or, it's not like one of those native perennials, but not to our area anyway. You'll see as we go, but it's still an easy one when it gets nice out to really have around you. And it's such a great cooking herb. But one of the things that people don't realize is this cooking herb is phenomenal for you. There is a ton of medicinal benefits to this little thing that probably, if you came in for gut detox or any of the health things that we do, rosemary might not be necessarily on the list of things we would put it into that category. But at the same time, rosemary chicken, rosemary tea, these are all things that you can really, really go after. So with that said, let's go check it out. Let's check out rosemary. And this is an easy one. This is rosemary tea. You'll see. So why rosemary might be the most underrated plant on earth. Why rosemary might be the most underrated plant on earth is our discussion tonight. So let's talk about a little history of rosemary. So our first one is that rosemary has been used for thousands of years in the Mediterranean cultures for cooking, preservation, and medicine. Ancient Greeks and Romans associated with memory and fidelity. Students wore garlands during exams, and it appeared in weddings and funerals. Folklore often links it to protection, remembrance, rosemary for remembrance from Shakespeare's Hamlet, and even love or warding off evil. It's a hardy plant that thrives in dry, sunny conditions, symbolizing resilience. Okay, so that's kind of the history of it in a nutshell. I don't want to get so deep. Some of these nights I've gotten a few going like a little too deep there. So culinary uses. Let's talk about that. So it's a versatile kitchen staple. So it should be in a lot of kitchens, no matter what. And I'll tell you a couple ways I use it other than the ones that we're getting into. Its woody stems and leaves flavor roasted meats, especially lamb and chicken, potatoes, breads, soups, marinades, and infused oils or vinegars. It acts as a natural preservative in foods due to its antioxidants, helping prevent oxidation and microbial growth. Fresh leaves offer a brighter aroma. Dried ones provide concentrated flavor and longer shelf life. It's generally recognized as safe by the FDA when used in typical food amounts. Okay. So, like if medicinal, we'll talk about that in future ones, if there's a medicinal property, but typically your food grade, spicing up meals is a really good place to start. So what we want to go over tonight is and most of the time, is what activates it. I don't want you to just know what rosemary is, but what is the key ingredient? Sometimes it's nice to know if it's got a bunch of antioxidants for inflammation or, lots of phytochemicals that do a bunch of different things. If you didn't see, hopefully my interview, Julie, let me know in the chat too, by the way. If you watch that interview, I was real worried about the sound quality. So if you were able to hear her, Kirsten, well enough, I'm going to try to fix that if the sound quality wasn't good enough. But so Kirsten was saying she was the Kirsten Shockey. If you didn't know, I interviewed them or her. She's written 5 books on fermentation. And it was fantastic. She's out of Oregon, so it was really cool to actually be able to interview her. But in fermented foods, it's not really about the probiotic piece is the one everybody's talking about, and it's amazing. So, like, one fermented food is the same if you taken like 4 probiotic supplements in the store, right? So that's why it's definitely worth getting fermentation into your life. One of the things that they're finding though is there's so many phytochemicals that are really, really good for you by doing it that way. So that's what I want you to concentrate on when you're looking at herbs in a general sense, is like, what can it do? When you look at it, like, okay, what you don't need to know what the names are or anything, but what is in it. So right now we know some good antioxidants are in there, right? So rosemary's benefits stem from their rich phytochemical profile. Carcinic acid and carnosol. These are powerful lipophilic, fat-soluble antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. Okay. Carnosinic acid is especially abundant in young leaves and protects against oxidative stress. Big deal, right? Oxidation is to our cells is it ages us, right? Because it beats up on the cells. Think of rust. Rust is oxidizing metal. So we don't want that rust to happen to our cells, right? Rosmarinic acid is a water-soluble compound with strong antioxidant and anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. One of the reasons rosemary is really, really good in there. A lot of your cooking herbs, guys, ton of them have a lot of medicinal property. We just don't herb up our food as much as we should. On special occasions we do, but let's start doing it on a regular basis. Essential oils. So rosemary is a really good essential oil too. So it has eucalyptol, alpha pinene, camphor. Camphor is a really good one for ligaments and stuff. And borneol, contributing to its aroma and effects on focused breathing. So this one is one of those herbs that we're going to talk about that really come in handy as an essential oil. Okay. This is not my expertise. Oh, yes. All right. So rosemary is really good in chocolate. We'll go back to that because that is interesting, Bradford. And what did Julie say? It was very hard to hear her. So I missed much of her talk because she was not loud enough. Okay. So I'll work on fixing that for my interviews because it's something I might be able to fix. I have a sweet microphone in front of me right now. So yeah, sometimes what's crazy is sometimes being on your cell phone is actually better. When Amy would do these with me, she came through loud and clear a lot of times, or if my brother Ryan does, because I make them get on their cell phone. So I might start making that happen. Weirdly, that's better. But anyway, some other notables that are coming in there is flavonoids. Flavonoids are a fantastic, just chemical within these herbs that are really good. The vitamins and minerals. So you have rosemary has iron, calcium, and vitamins A, C, and B6. Okay. So that is awesome, right? So these compounds work synergistically. The extracts or the whole herb often outperform the isolated parts in studies. So this is one, if you grow it, okay. So if you grow it and you produce it yourself, you probably are going to get more benefit than, the isolation piece in, like how they isolate different. So you have isolated like the flower petal, the root, the stem. Sometimes that's a really good move, right? So some different ones have, I always think of elderberry. Elderberry has major differences between the flower and the stem, right? And so you can have different even medicinal properties that way. But rosemary's one that in combination, it gives you this bigger herb that can be really fantastic. Okay. All right. So this is all supported by research. So understand that all the stuff I'm giving you is good that way. And Rosemary's got some good research to it. So this is pretty cool. Most evidence comes from lab, animal, and human studies. Rosemary shows promise, but like they want to make sure it's not a cure-all. Nothing is. The innate intelligence of the body is the cure-all. Remember that? It's your body. So they can keep looking, but that's going to be a problem. Benefits are often supportive alongside a healthy lifestyle. Okay. But here is one of the keys that's happening recently. Okay. Cognitive function and memory. Rosemary is famously linked to brain health. Inhalation of essential oils or consumptions of leaf powder has improved memory speed, quality, and alertness in some trials. Older adults, especially, and some students. So having rosemary around, well, let's say if you got a student in school, maybe rosemary something you get them that scent. Maybe get some essential oils going in the room, or those kind of things. Compounds like this one called 1,8-cinyl may boost acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter in your brain, and it helps with memory. It may also support neuroprotection against age-related decline or conditions like Alzheimer's in preclinical models. So what they're saying is if we can get these neurotransmitters, so rosemary has an effect more than just a pleasant smell, right? Where you put a smile on your face, but it actually could help with releasing neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters is something we want to be active throughout our life because that's the electricity essentially of your brain and nervous system. So we have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. Rosemary's compounds neutralize free radicals and reduce oxidative stress, potentially protecting cells, liver, and blood vessels. Okay, so big thing always when you're looking, antioxidants are always a good thing that you'd want to take because of the protection. It's kind of, I always think of antioxidants is like you treat metal, right? You put like paint. Let's say you put paint on metal to protect it from rust. How does rust happen? You sit it out in the environment, it becomes oxidized. That it becomes rusty, and then it's not as good. It starts to weaken, right? So antioxidants essentially not letting your cells rust. Okay. And so that's why anything with good antioxidants, which is a lot of plants, tons of plants, when we eat really good vegetables, that's why rosemary is at the top of something we're going to grow in my herb garden this year for sure. And anti-inflammatory effects come alongside when you're looking at those antioxidants. If you're going to protect from rust, then you usually are protecting and helping the immune system have good inflammation properties. Okay. So mood, anxiety, and stress. This is a really good one. Yeah. So some of my listeners, I won't get out there, but one of my patients asked, they're pretty excited. They're like, "You do a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do it. One to get, like I just love learning new stuff. Like rosemary to me, I'm studying it with you, right? And now I'll know it even 3 times better just by me doing it with you." And this one, didn't even think of it. I've been, oh man, on passion flower and a chamomile and a lot of other ones, but now I understand this one. Rosemary tea doesn't sound too bad. So mood, anxiety, and stress. Aromatherapy or extracts may reduce anxiety, improve sleep quality, and elevate mood. Some studies link it to lower cortisol or better mental energy. Animal research suggests antidepressant-like effects via the dopamine regulation, which is fantastic. So smelling it, a lot of it in the aromatherapy aspect. I think of rosemary tea because you'll still get that nice aroma and everything else. Supplementation, this rosemary might not be the go-to that way. You might want to take it in a different way because you want to smell it. You want to have all the effects of the rosemary to get to that brain. Remember, when you smell things, it's a whole neurological, like it can be a neurological massage to your brain if you can find a really good scent. Lexi and I often get made fun of. So Lexi's my youngest daughter, and anytime we go shopping, Lexi and I make it to the candle shop where we decide to try to find scents that we really, really like, while Allie and Rachel go off and shop and do these things and think that we're weirdos. But we find some good scents. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming when you do too many candles, but we're probably the only people that have. I buy too many candles. Isn't that weird? But I love the scents. Anytime you get your brain kind of wrapped around good scents, it can be a good thing. And rosemary is one of those. And here's a good one that I want to make sure you guys remember is it has good antimicrobial properties. Really, really good. It's effective against certain bacteria, staphylococcus, viruses, and fungi in lab tests. Useful for food preservation or topical applications in skin issues. So it could be a nice something you put over your skin, those kind of things as a topical ointment. Okay. All right. So here's some more. I think we did that. Yeah, I screwed that up. Okay. So here's some other ones that could be there. Digestion. Traditional use for indigestion, gas, and appetite can be an antispasmodic effect. So rosemary could be good in that indigestion and gas situation. Remember what that type of herb is called a carminative, right? A carminative is something that will break down the gas. So let's say you have lots of gassy situations. Things like peppermint, dill, all of these things are kind of what they call carminative, and it'll break up that gas, allowing you to not have that discomfort there. Hair and skin, rosemary oil diluted and massaged into the scalp showed hair growth benefits compared to minoxidil in one small alopecia study. That's interesting. It may also nourish skin or act as a mild repellent of, insect repellent. So that's kind of cool. And that is in kind of one of those secret little ingredients they use for mosquitoes. I use garlic a lot in there, and you can smell it. So the people that use organic mosquito spray, a lot of times they'll have some rosemary actually in there as well. And so it's very interesting that you can actually repel mosquitoes with basically like garlic, rosemary. It's very interesting. Like they do this combined thing, but if you had the right tools and you spray it all over your yard, you might get 2 or 3 weeks of like protection from mosquitoes and stuff. Blood sugar and metabolic support. There's not a ton of studies on yet, but there is preliminary hints in animal studies, but they need to do more on that. Anti-cancer potential. They're starting to look at some of the ones we said in the beginning, the carnosic and the rosmarinic acids may inhibit certain cancer cell growth, but they haven't done anything with that as far as research goes. Might do it still. You got to remember, some of these guys have to. So one of the biggest things you got to understand about the medical pharmaceutical area is they have to do, they kind of have to do the plant studies to get the drug study, right? So they have to figure out what's the active ingredient in these plants that is causing these benefits. And then how do I make it a penny and make it a chemical? So in a weird way, a lot of your herbs get studied quite often. I bring this up because a kid that I take care of she is awesome. She's a great kid. But she's going to Michigan State University right now and going into neuroscience in either doctor or research. And so she wanted to interview me, you know, as, you know, as, you know, I don't know. I don't know why you would interview me, but so she interviewed me and we had the best time. It was like an hour and a half talk because she understands chiropractic so well. She was a kid that had migraine headaches pretty bad in the teenage years. And they found that, you know, sticking with or doing chiropractic adjustments really started turning the corner to the point that she just knew when she needed to get adjusted and she would come in all the time. Well, now that she's going into neuroscience, it's exciting for me because she can kind of see where those things correlate together. And one of the things that bugged her, though, she was like, why don't you guys have, it feels like you've only had a ton of studies like maybe the last 2 to 7 years. I go, oh, they're out there. It's very, very little, though. And she goes, why? I go, because chiropractic as a holistic medicine doesn't make $1 trillion. The company making Ozempic right now is probably worth just the medicine alone will be like $1 trillion, right? So you can take just off of one medicine, you can take a lot of that profitability and dump it into more research. I'm not going to say yes or no, you know, if that's good or bad. We could obviously know it's not great, but but that's where they get a lot of their cash flow from to run these research things that are really, really good, you know, but you know, it's going to be hard for a holistic thing to ever hit the trillion mark. Unless we figure out the herbal Viagra, we're in trouble. All right. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So here's the last little piece on the medicinal herbal and health benefits. The dried herb or tea versus the essential oil. Teas or powders deliver water and fat soluble compounds for internal benefits. Essential oil is highly concentrated, best for aromatherapy, diffusion, or diluted topical use, but never ingest undiluted, right? So we don't want to do that. But there is a difference in the tea and the herb. It keeps a lot of those phytochemicals, what they call fat soluble and water soluble. They're able to keep it a little bit more than the essential oil, but there's a lot of good stuff for the essential oil, of course. You know, I want to do that some night. I want to try to grab if somebody knows somebody, an essential oil expert, because I love that category. But it's like when I started studying herbs, I was like, oh my God, it's going to take me another 3 years to just learn the different aspects there. Anyway, so let's keep going. So where does it grow well? So hopefully you guys understand when to use it. So rosemary is great for anti-inflammatory, some antimicrobials, but really it's a nice herb. It's a good mental clarity herb. It's a good brain relaxation herb. It's a good one in scent, right? So don't think of just ingesting things. Think of smelling. Smelling's neurological, correct? So when you smell things, and it can give you a good neurological situation. So why not find rosemary, you know, candles? Cooking with rosemary, obviously, is one of the best ways to do it. That's always fantastic, right? Because then you get the scent in the air. You know, rosemary is usually around holidays that you get to smell it because it's usually in your turkeys or chicken or, you know, those kind of things. And that's why it smells so good. But it adds to that caveat. Imagine, you know, making sure you're cooking with it on a regular basis and getting that beautiful scent within. I actually do a little bit of rosemary and eggs, and Rachel loves it. So I do rosemary, sage, I think a touch of right, but just enough. Like if you're doing scrambled eggs, just a very little. I learned that from Wolfgang Puck on the Food Network. You put just a little bit, but you can't overdo it. You cannot. And then all of a sudden, it's like this perfect egg mix. So Makes you feel like you're pretty pro at the old scrambled eggs. It's about all I can cook anyway. All right. So, where does rosemary grow well? So, unfortunately for Michigan people, ideal growing conditions, rosemary loves environments that mimic the Mediterranean. So, like its Mediterranean home. It's climates with warm, sunny, relatively dry with low humidity. It tolerates heat and drought well once established after the first year or so. The sunlight wants full sun, 6 to 8 hours a day. It can handle part shade but won't thrive or produce as much of the aromatic oil. The soil is going to be well drained, sandy, gravelly, or loamy. So it's really it's a pretty hardy herb, actually. So you can get away with a lot of different things because of the toughness of it. You want a slightly acidic soil. It hates wet though. It doesn't, if you don't have good drainage in a certain area, it leads to the root rotting out. So it's drought tolerant, water moderately to establish, and then very little after that. So once you get it going, especially in Michigan, leave it alone because it likes to actually be dry. Overwatering is the most common killer. It likes mild winters. That's why I wanted to bring it up here, because you might make it through. Michigan winter. This winter would have been rough, to get through, but it's generally really good in 8 to 10. I think we're like a 6. So, but it's a perennial evergreen shrub. Some cold hardy cultivators can survive in zone 7 or even parts of 6 with protection. So we just want to make sure if you plant that rosemary, you're going to protect it in our winters around here. Okay. So that's the biggest one. All right. So that's where it grows well. Okay. So this is kind of how we would take the rosemary, right? And we've kind of discussed that as we go. This is not going to be your traditional, take this many milligrams, whatever, because aroma matters. Teas matter, food herb matters. Okay. So how to use it. Tea, you can steep 1 teaspoon of dried leaves in hot water for about 5 to 10 minutes. This is probably medicinally the way I want you to go. That's what I was wondering. Michigan is mostly zone 5. Do we ever touch zone 6, Julie? Let me know that, because for some reason, when I was going to this native plant lady, I thought she said that, but I might be wrong. But in the lower part, the southern part of Michigan, we get away with some interesting. We can get, that's what I was wondering. Okay, so it's no, so it's definitely zone 5. So especially after this winter, dear Lord, we weren't touching no zone anything like any other milder ones. Years before, sometimes it was like crazy that you could get away with that stuff. But so in tea, sorry, I'll go back to it. Tea, you steep 1 tablespoon of dry leaves in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes. Very, very good. Culinarily, using it as a culinary herb, you want to use the fresh or dried in meals. You just want to start with a mild amount, small, but it's still going to be potent. Okay. So you're still going to get some of those great medicinal benefits using it as culinary. Aromatherapy, diffuse the essential oil or inhale from the actual stuff. So that could be where the aromatherapy type stuff can be huge in why? Because our olfactory, our sense is sense. So not everything has to be eaten to make sure we can have our mental clarity through just the beautiful sense of it. Now, I showed you why rosemary, there's a lot of real benefits to ingesting rosemary with the antioxidants, everything else. It would be good. Topical, you want to dilute the oil, right? Remember, it's an antimicrobial, can be. And then you use a carrier oil, okay? So people that know how to do the essential oil know. And then you could do this for scalp hair massage. Okay. So remember, there's potential that it could have grown some hair. There's not a ton of science on that, but people have done it. And then supplements, there are standardized extracts, but you have to follow the dosage on the extract. So sometimes it's much different at each one. And so you want to watch that. Typically, they're all safe. I mean, like rosemary in general is a pretty safe herb, but typically safe culinary or short-term medicinal use. So what they're saying is in rosemary, like a lot of the ones we do, and the biggest thing for me in herbal world is you don't take it forever, right? We want we want big chunks. We want to take it for a while, not take it for a while, right? And the reason you do that is to allow your body to utilize those properties. Okay. And it keeps you away from any weird side effects. If you're eating, all rosemary all the time, do you get into the medical problems or whatever? Up to a few grams of dried leaves daily. And then if you want to go into the therapeutic doses, that's when you talk to me. Okay. It's generally safe because of the food, especially in food grade stuff. Large amounts, huge amounts, can cause some vomiting, stomach upset, kidney irritation, or increased sun sensitivity, which can happen. Allergic reactions like redness, skin rashes are possible. So that's why this one's not perfectly safe like a chamomile. Okay. So who should be cautious is pregnant or breastfeeding people, women. Avoid doses due to the kind of menagogue or the different effects of the cholagogue type situation where it can get organs activated. Those with bleeding disorders, epilepsy, or blood thinners on anticoagulants. So they haven't seen any interactions, but they always say like there could be theoretical interactions, which tells me they're just covering their butt. That's why if you take it on a regular and want to do it as a therapeutic medicinal thing, then talk to somebody about that before you do that. So because high doses can affect blood pressure or interact with medications. So you want to check with a doctor. Essential oils, you always want to dilute it. And you don't want to ingest an essential oil unless you have professional guidance. But it's super low risk. It's pretty low risk. They just, they're not sure yet because they probably haven't done the major safety study type stuff. But it's a pleasant herb with growing scientific backing for what? Tonight, it's about the mental health, right? So the mental health is the one that they've done since the Roman times. Okay. And so that's where rosemary has a really rich history. And for me, not only the mental health aspect, but the antioxidants, the anti-inflammatory support. So that is amazing. Okay. So now we go into a fun part where we go into some recipes for the night. And if you guys have any questions coming in, let me know. I'm glad everybody came to hear about rosemary, which will be fun. It adds something. So think about that, like everything in health, right? So 1% Tribe, we constantly are looking to improve who we are based on the health and wellness of who we are. Okay. And one of the neatest things about the 1% Tribe is that 1%. This one's pretty easy in the sense of adding rosemary to some really good teas, food. Every time you add rosemary, to chicken, which we'll talk about. Every time you do that, it's like you went to you had a chef make it. Okay. When you herb up your food, you probably make stuff better than the restaurants. Okay. So just remember that as we go. So my first one is rosemary tea. So rosemary tea, it's very easy. But it's a great medicinal entry point. So this is a great cognitive relaxation. It's a nice, like chamomile is a good one like that. But easy to brew. So ingredients are, it makes 1 cup. So you make 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary leaves, right? Chop up and make sure they're fresh. I'm sorry, 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary leaves. That's the dried, or 1 to 2 teaspoons of fresh with chopped. Okay. So once you grow your own rosemary, now we do that. We do 8 to 10 ounces of boiling water. And then you can add honey, lemon slice, or a pinch of mint for a milder flavor. Place rosemary tea in the infuser directly into the teapot, like my tea thing that I have. You could do that. Pour the boiling water over it, and that's called steeping, right? And then you leave it for 5 to 10 minutes. The longer you steep it, the better you do. So usually minimum of 10. 10 minutes is where I'm at most of the time. You can strain it or create your own tea bag, that kind of thing. And try to drink 1 to 3 cups per day. All right. But mental clarity, soothe bloating, those could be 2 pretty good ones for a rosemary, especially the mental clarity. So this is one that I'm going to look for because I haven't tried some rosemary tea. Should be one of those staple ones you'd think, but I have not tried it. So what is this? No, I didn't knock that one out. Oh, I didn't take what? Okay, so this is roasted veggies. Okay, this is my golden. Ignore the title. So what I do is I copy and paste my old herbals ones, and I always forget something in there. Okay, so these are actually the rosemary potatoes. Okay, so I haven't tried this. So I'm a huge sweet potato fan. Potatoes itself have a lot of sugar, a lot of starches. However, still delish, right? So potatoes are really, really good. Depends on where you're at and all your dietary needs. But so here's what they do with their rosemary. So they use 1.5 to 2 pounds of small red Yukon Gold potatoes, halved or quartered. So 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh rosemary, chopped up and dried, 3 to 4 garlic cloves, minced and mashed, salt and black pepper to taste. And then if you want to, you could add a little zest of 1 lemon or a little lemon juice. And then you preheat your oven. Preheat your oven to 400 to 425 degrees. Toss the potatoes in with the oil, rosemary, garlic, salt, and pepper in a bowl. Spread to a thin layer on a baking sheet. Roast for 35 to 45 minutes, flipping them halfway until they're golden crispy. If you want to, you can add a little Parmesan in the last 10 minutes. Toss it also with green beans, and it's delish. But one of the things that Rachel makes that is ridiculous is very similar. We will do that with different variety, not just your heartier vegetables. So we'll use sweet potato, we'll use carrots, we'll use all these different things, and we'll actually do that, chop and quarter veggies on a baking sheet, go 4 to 425, 30 35 minutes, a little oil on the top. I know it's not great to heat up your olive oil, however, it's delicious. So then you put on your herbs that you want. I beg her for this stuff. It's a great way to use a lot of things in the garden that are really hardy in Michigan. Okay. So like a zucchini, you could add, just chop and quarter. I'm trying to think of other vegetables she uses. Lots of different ones. The Brussels sprouts, another Brussels sprouts is added in there as well. But that is essentially how she does that. We call it roasted vegetables. And it's just a myriad of different veggies. She puts it in that thing, and then you just take we do it as a protein bowl. So like we'll take all these, we won't have regular potatoes, but we'll have all these different veggies. And we'll roast them like that with a bunch of spices. Rosemary could be one of those. And then once that happens, then we'll get burger or steak or whatever, and that will be your meal. It's very simple, but it's stuff straight out of your garden. So the amount of energy you get is you can feel the energy. So that's why I wanted to put this one in, even though that's not the immune syrup. If you want to see that one, go back to echinacea when we talked about that. All right, so this is the one that's pretty classic. It's sheet pan rosemary chicken. Sheet pan rosemary chicken and potatoes, the one pan dinner. So let's make it easy. All right. So this one it creates a savory, nice protein, and it's great for busy weeknights. So take 6 bone-in chicken, skin on chicken thighs or whole chicken, whatever you want to do, cut it up. Have a pound and a half of potatoes all quartered up. 3 to 4 tablespoons of olive oil. You could probably use something different if you want on that, because now we're finding out heating that up. But for now, olive oil. 3 to 2 tablespoons of fresh rosemary chopped. 4 garlic cloves. 1 teaspoon of dry oregano or thyme, which is another great one, right? Juice and zest 1 lemon, salt and pepper, and then you preheat the oven from 375 to 475 or 425. Mix it all together. Toss the chicken in the mixture. What else do it? Arrange it on the sheet pan and roast for 45 to 60 minutes until the chicken reaches 165 and the potatoes are tender and crispy. Baste with pan juices midway for extra flavor. So that's a good one for rosemary, right? So now we got rosemary tea, rosemary chicken, rosemary potatoes. Pretty standard stuff. This is the one I wanted to talk to you tonight about, though. This is kind of cool. I have a machine called the Levo. A Levo actually does this a little easier than what I'm about to go through. Sometimes you can get really good at infusing olive oil with some of these really good herbs, and rosemary is a really good one. If you some of you have been to the restaurants where you have the little bread dipping sauce with the delicious herbs, it's like usually in an Italian restaurant or something, and we dip our bread into there, and you get the rosemary and it's just fantastic. So one of the ways to do this is make your own olive oil as like a dipping sauce or a salad dressing, right? And so that is where this one is. This is infused olive oil. So rosemary infused olive oil, it ties to the culinary topical uses like drizzling on bread and veggies. And or here's what's crazy. You can use it as a base for your hair and scalp oil if you do this correctly. So there's a simple stovetop method where you cook 1 cup of good quality olive oil and then 4 to 6 fresh rosemary sprigs, washed and thoroughly dried. So then you gently heat the oil and rosemary in a small saucepan over medium to low heat. You don't want to overdo it. Okay. That's the biggest thing with any kind of oil. Do not let it boil or let it smoke, or else you break down the oil completely. Remove from the heat and cool completely, but leave the sprigs in. Leave 1 in for aesthetics if you want to, and then pour it into a clean bottle. Store in fridge and use within a month. Okay. So a lot of times if you want to get that heat into it, but you don't want to break down the oils, right? So if you use it like cooking with olive oil is rough. Like let's say we used to do it all the time. You'd cook everything, in a frying pan with olive oil, right? Well, that's way too hot and it breaks it down and it actually creates almost essentially a seed oil. But by slowly heating it, getting it up to a nice, you actually the oil actually starts sucking the goodness out of the rosemary, and you get a nice flavored olive oil. Okay. So if you don't like cooking it and taking the chance of that, you can place rosemary in a jar, cover it with oil, let it sit in a warm spot for 4 to 6 weeks. And you almost like a fermentation, and you shake it occasionally. And then you can dip it with bread, roast veggies with it, dilute it further to massage your scalp for those kind of benefits with rosemary infused oil for your hair, which is fantastic. Or remember what it said, topically, what could else you do? Antimicrobial could be a thing. You cut yourself out in the thing, you can put a little dab of that on there and you'll be sitting pretty good. Okay, so with all of this said, tonight, I want you to try definitely getting into some rosemary action. You could see, especially the cognitive, the science is pretty cool. The science is showing, and it's trending pretty hard towards helping with the, like some of these like memory loss kind of conditions, like your Parkinson's, dementia, those kind of things. Maybe rosemary is a great way to go. One of the big things is tonight was a really good one, and not necessarily having to have it as a tea or a tincture, which I'm going to do a tea for sure. I want to try it, see how it goes as a rosemary tea. But it's one of those we could add to all of our day-to-day cooking at least once a week, something like that. And you start adding that to our 1% tribe. It's an herb that has medicinal value, that it just goes within your lifestyle. That's my ultimate goal with this whole podcast is let's make all of our moves working toward better health. And then once we get into that habit, it's amazing. Because right now, like after, it takes a while to do this stuff, but Rachel made her first, this is her second. She's getting so comfortable with making sauerkraut, that lemon dill sauerkraut, that it was fantastic. It's like she likes the crunchiness of the red cabbage in the lemon dill sauerkraut. So she made her own, like one Saturday morning, right? That's the kind of cool thing that it keeps happening over and over again. Like as you learn things, making sure that you feel confidence, making dinner for your kids or making for yourself, getting out. But stay tuned on a few different things. One, we're going to pick a better date for that anti-inflammatory talk. Rachel and I have another idea we want to throw by everybody. I think it would be a blast. I don't know. We might do a first one where it's just a few of us getting on there, but we're thinking about doing some hiking like together as a unit, because Rachel and I love doing it, and I think it would be fun to see what we can do to explore things in the actual woods and see what that feels like, because it's coming, man. Mushroom season's almost here. So I'm like, man, maybe that's the way we go. We can find some place that has mushrooms, and we can go on our own hike and quest and look not only for mushrooms, but maybe some spring herbs that might be out in our woods somewhere. That'd be pretty fun. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. Remember, Wednesday night, 8:30, we do Whole Health Weekly, where we break down all the trends that are happening tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the rosemary stuff. Tons of benefits, ton of health benefits there. Harder to use unless you're using it in the culinary sense. But the aromatherapy stuff, maybe that's the kicker. Remember, we want to listen to good things. We want to taste good things. We want to smell good things. And all of these things lead to neurologically something in a better environment. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we shall see you on Wednesday night, baby. You guys have a great night and have a great week. Hopefully our spring is starting to come. It'll be a busy one, but it'll be worth it. All right. Take it easy. Have a good one.